At 3 a.m., the sharp ring of Ibrahim Traoré's cell phone shattered the stillness of his bedroom in Ouagadougou. The call came through a secure line, known only to a select few in Burkina Faso's military elite. Traoré answered immediately, his voice steady despite the hour. Traoré. On the other end, Major Sankara's tone was taut with urgency. Sir, the coup has begun. General Dumire is moving toward the presidential palace with the 3rd Battalion. Traoré rose swiftly, crossing to the window. In the distance, he could make out the faint silhouettes of armored vehicles creeping through the darkness, their headlights dimmed to avoid detection. His mind raced, calculating the implications. General Maurice Dumire, his trusted confidant and chief of defense staff, had betrayed him. Within hours, in a stunning reversal, Dumire would find himself a prisoner of his own soldiers. How had Traoré transformed this act of treachery into a masterful counterstroke? The conversation with Major Sankara was brief but critical. How far are they? Traoré asked, already assessing his options. Approximately 15 minutes from the outer perimeter, sir, Sankara replied. The Presidential Guard is on alert, but, he hesitated, and Traoré finished the thought. Dumire likely has loyalists among them. Sankara confirmed, and the other battalions are silent, sir. No response to communications. The silence was telling, either they were complicit or neutralized. Traoré's mind sharpened, focusing on the immediate. Implement Protocol Omega, he ordered, referring to a clandestine contingency plan known only to his inner circle. I'll meet you at the designated point in 10 minutes. Hanging up, he dressed quickly in plain civilian clothes, slipping a secure satellite phone, an encrypted thumb drive, and a small-caliber pistol into his pockets. As he moved, Traoré's thoughts flashed back to 3 days prior, when Colonel Ouedraogo, his intelligence chief, had presented a dossier with a grim expression. Sir, we've intercepted communications you need to see. The dossier contained transcripts of calls between General Dumire and operatives of the French Foreign Intelligence Service, discussing regime change and lucrative post-coup arrangements. How reliable is this? Traoré had asked. Ouedraogo's response was unequivocal, multiple sources confirm. The French are offering him the presidency in exchange for reversing your policies on foreign military bases and mining concessions. They move in 3 days. Traoré had chosen not to act immediately, a calculated gamble to let the conspiracy unfold just enough to expose all its players. Now, as armored vehicles closed in, that decision placed him in immediate danger but also positioned him to outmaneuver his adversaries. Traoré slipped through a concealed passage connecting the presidential quarters to a service area, emerging into the cool night air. A nondescript sedan with tinted windows idled nearby, Major Sankara at the wheel. Traoré slid into the passenger seat, and they sped off, taking a circuitous route to avoid the advancing convoy. Status update, Traoré demanded as they navigated Ouagadougou's darkened streets. Sankara reported, Dumire is personally leading the operation, about 200 soldiers, mostly 3rd Battalion. They've secured the national radio station and positioned units around key government buildings. Our countermeasures are in progress. Colonel Ouedraogo has activated the sleeper network. Phase 1 is complete. Traoré allowed a flicker of satisfaction. Phase 1, replacing the 3rd Battalion's ammunition with blanks and disabled rounds, had been executed 48 hours earlier under the guise of routine inventory. The coup's forces would appear formidable but lack the means to sustain a fight. The sedan pulled into an underground garage beneath an unassuming office building on the city's outskirts, a shadow command center known only to Traoré's most trusted allies. Inside, the room buzzed with activity. Intelligence officers monitored communications, security personnel coordinated movements, and commanders of the loyal 1st and 4th Battalions stood ready, briefed the previous day. Colonel Ouedraogo greeted Traoré with a tablet displaying a real-time map of the city, glowing dots tracking troop movements. General Dumire has entered the palace grounds, Ouedraogo reported. He'll soon discover your absence. Traoré studied the map. And the French? Ouedraogo's expression darkened. Unusual activity at their embassy, secure communications and a private jet landed at the military airfield an hour ago. Traoré nodded. Right on schedule. Addressing the room, he spoke with calm authority. Gentlemen, this is not just a military coup. It's an attempt by foreign interests to reclaim control over our nation's resources and destiny. Dumir is their agent. We will defeat this coup and expose its architects. At the presidential palace, General Dumir strode through the main entrance, flanked by armed soldiers. The presidential guard offered little resistance, some joined him, others vanished, tipped off by rumors. Secure the second floor, Dumir ordered a lieutenant. Find Traoré and bring him to me alive. A public resignation from Traoré would lend legitimacy to the coup. When his radio crackled with news that Traoré was nowhere in the compound, Dumir frowned but pressed on. Expand the search perimeter and prepare the broadcast equipment, he commanded, settling at Traoré's desk to review his planned address to the nation, announcing a military intervention to restore constitutional order. As dawn broke, Ouagadougou awoke to an eerie quiet. Streets were nearly empty, checkpoints manned by 3rd Battalion soldiers dotted major intersections, and a military vehicle sat outside the national radio station. At 6 a.m., regular programming halted for a broadcast. This is the National Committee for Salvation. The military has assumed temporary control to address the unconstitutional actions of the former government. Citizens are advised to remain calm and stay indoors. In the Shadow Command Center, Traoré and his team listened. They're moving faster than expected, Ouedraogo noted. Dumir's under pressure from his French backers. Traoré checked his watch. Is the evidence package ready? Ouedraogo handed him a flash drive containing intercepted communications, bank transfers, and a timeline of Dumir's meetings with French operatives. Distributed as planned, Traoré ordered. Every news outlet, social media platform, community leaders, our people must see who's behind this. Traoré's strategy diverged from typical coup responses. Rather than confront the rebels head-on or capitulate, he orchestrated a multi-layered counter-operation. The 3rd Battalion's communications were compromised, their ammunition depleted, and their positions quietly encircled by loyal units. Simultaneously, citizens received messages on their phones, documents, audio recordings, and bank statements exposing Dumir's dealings with French officials, including plans to cede control of Burkina Faso's gold mines and millions in euros transferred to his accounts. The evidence was irrefutable, designed to erode the coup's legitimacy from within. At the French embassy, Ambassador Jean-Marc Lefebvre grew uneasy. Traoré remained at large, and the promised support from other battalions hadn't materialized. Get me General Dumir, he snapped at his aide. And contact Paris, we may need to adjust our approach. Outside, citizens gathered, holding phones displaying the leaked documents, their anger palpable. At the palace, Dumir faced a crumbling operation. His calls to the French embassy went unanswered, and reports flooded in of ammunition shortages and equipment failures. A major rushed in, "Sir, compromising documents are circulating online, communications between you and French officials." Panic crept into Dumir's mind. How had Traoré known? How had he prepared so thoroughly? Before he could respond, the palace's security screens flickered on, showing loyal military vehicles closing in. At the 3rd Battalion's command center, Lieutenant Colonel Senu, Dumir's second-in-command, struggled to maintain control. Establish a defensive perimeter, he ordered, but his commanders reported being surrounded by the 1st and 4th Battalions, who demanded surrender. Worse, soldiers were questioning Dumir's motives after seeing the leaked evidence. When Colonel Zongo of the 1st Battalion approached under a flag of parley, many 3rd Battalion soldiers lowered their weapons. Your ammunition is compromised, your communications monitored, and your general has betrayed the nation, Zongo stated, showing Senu the incriminating documents. You have 10 minutes to surrender before we move in. No one needs to die for Dumir's ambition. In the Shadow Command Center, Traoré received the news. The 3rd Battalion was standing down, their commanders surrendering without resistance. Colonel Ouedraogo's voice carried admiration. "Your strategy worked, sir." Exposing Damir's foreign ties turned his soldiers against him. Traoré's expression remained somber. And Damir himself? Still in the palace, surrounded by his personal guard, requesting terms. Traoré considered his next move carefully. A public execution risked creating a martyr, imprisonment might leave questions unanswered. Bring him to the national stadium, he decided. Full security, no humiliation. Prepare for a public questioning, televised live, no scripted trial, just the evidence and our people's judgment. By noon, the coup had collapsed. The 3rd Battalion surrendered en masse, many soldiers joining Traoré's forces upon learning of Damir's betrayal. The French embassy was encircled by protesters clutching printouts of the leaked documents, demanding accountability. Ambassador Lefebvre, holed up in his secure communications room, scrambled to contact Paris. At the palace, Damir sat alone in Traoré's office, watching loyal forces approach. His guards had deserted him, their loyalty shattered by the revelations. As Colonel Zongo entered, Damir surrendered his sidearm with quiet dignity. "General Maurice Damir, you are under arrest for treason," Zongo announced. Damir offered no resistance, his mind already bracing for the public reckoning ahead. 4 hours later, the national stadium brimmed with citizens who had flocked to witness an unprecedented event. A simple table stood at the center, flanked by 2 chairs and a monitor displaying evidence for the crowd and the nation watching via broadcast. Traoré, dressed in a plain military uniform devoid of rank, faced Damir, who looked haggard but composed. The atmosphere was solemn, not celebratory, a collective examination of betrayal. "General Damir," Traoré began, his voice calm yet resonant, "for 15 years, we served together, fought together, built this government together. Today, you led the 3rd Battalion to remove me from office. I want to understand why, not just for me, but for our people." The stadium fell silent, the weight of the moment palpable. Damir, expecting condemnation, seemed startled by the question's sincerity. "Your policies, resource nationalism, rejecting Western military aid, pivoting to Russia and China, have isolated us," he said, his voice steady but defensive. "They've cut us off from allies who could develop our nation." Traoré nodded, letting him speak. When Damir finished, Traoré gestured to the monitor, which began displaying the evidence: intercepted calls, emails, photos of clandestine meetings, and bank records showing €3 million in payments to Damir. "These are your words, Maurice, your agreements," Traoré said. The evidence was relentless, detailing Damir's negotiations to reinstate foreign mining concessions and his role in the morning's coup. As the document scrolled, Damir's composure faltered. His justifications, acting for the nation's survival, making pragmatic choices, crumbled against the reality of personal gain and foreign collusion. The crowd remained silent, their judgment heavy in the air. "I have one question," Traoré said. "When did you decide our nation's sovereignty was negotiable? That our resources belong to foreign interests, our future decided in Paris rather than Ouagadougou?" Damir met his gaze, a flicker of anger in his eyes. "Governing isn't about idealism, it's about survival. The West controls finance, security, development. Defy them, and they'll ensure we fail." Traoré's response was measured: "So you chose surrender over struggle. You decided independence was too costly." Standing, Traoré addressed the stadium and the nation. "This is our choice as a people, the easy path of dependence, where our resources enrich others, or the harder path of self-determination, enduring challenges for true prosperity." Turning back to Damir, he added, "What you never understood, Maurice, is that this isn't my policy, it's the will of our people, who have suffered enough under external control disguised as partnership." The crowd stirred, not with anger but with a swelling affirmation of their collective resolve. Traoré's strategy had been a masterclass in foresight and restraint. By allowing the coup to unfold, he exposed its architects and their foreign backers, leveraging the truth to dismantle the conspiracy from within. The leaked evidence turned Damir's soldiers against him, while the public questioning in the stadium ensured transparency, denying Damir the martyr's mantle. The French embassy, now a focal point of public outrage, faced a diplomatic crisis as citizens demanded accountability. Traoré had not only thwarted the coup but reframed it as a national awakening, rallying Burkina Faso around its sovereignty. Damir, stripped of his command and credibility, faced a future of legal consequences, but Traoré's focus was broader. The stadium event was not about personal vengeance but about affirming a principle: Burkina Faso's destiny belonged to its people, not foreign powers or their proxies. As the broadcast ended, citizens left the stadium not with triumphalism but with a quiet determination to protect their nation's hard-won independence. Traoré's gamble, waiting, watching, and striking with precision, had turned betrayal into a catalyst for unity, exposing the cost of collusion and the power of truth.